Welcome if you're just joining us. This is the FR24 debate. 72 hours ago, Tunisians overthrew their president in the Arab world's first ever popular uprising. 72 hours later, though, it's still touch and go, with gunfire and tear gas in the capital and automatic weapons fire heard during the strictly enforced overnight curfews. So, in the face of scenes like this one in the capital, Tunis, earlier, what is next? Democracy or dictatorship? And how about the spillover effect throughout the region? 1 month to the day after a young Tunisian set himself alight after his flower stand was confiscated, that suicidal act of defiance triggering copycat instances of self-immolation in Algeria, Egypt, even as far away as Mauritania. Is the Arab world ripe for more popular uprisings? And if so, what will be their outcome? Today in the FR24 debate, after Ben Ali, with Tunisian Monsef Sheikh Rouhou, who hopes to join us soon. Also with us, Mahmoud Ismail, director of the Egyptian Cultural Center in Paris. Welcome back. Also, he's Algerian-born. Today, a British subject attorney, Saad Jabbar, joins us from London. How are you?
Hello, thank you.
And if you drive up the M11, I believe, you can meet George Joffe of Cambridge University. Welcome back to the FR24 debate.
Thank you very much.
And from Algiers, Amel Boubekeur of the Paris-based Higher School for Social Studies. Thanks for being with us. A very informative interview in French that we read of yours from El Watan, the Algerian newspaper there.
Yeah, thanks for your invitation.
Now, you too can take part in the debate. So just log on to Facebook and type the FR24 debate. We'll be reading some of your comments shortly. Now, before we get an update on the situation in Tunis, let's look at the front page of left-leaning French tabloid newspaper Libération. À qui le tour? Whose turn next? Asks the paper. On page 3, we get an editorial from where it says, "Today the Tunisian people have shown that the chimes of freedom have a universal ring, and that whether you're Chinese, Iranian, or Arab, you prefer a state of law to any dictatorship, be it of Allah or the single-party state, a regime where, as Winston Churchill put it, the doorbell rings at 6 a.m., you're sure it's the milkman." And Monsef Sheikh Rouhou, thank you for joining us. Welcome back to the FR24 debate.
Thank you.
Is it the chimes of freedom that we're hearing out of Tunisia?
Well, it's the reality of freedom. It's better than the chimes. Chimes are a signal, but the reality, we are living it, and the young generation is making it come true. So there are some risks, but where were we yesterday and where are we now, as we say in Tunisia?
All right, and in The Guardian today, there was Mahmoud Ismail, a column by Egyptian-born journalist Mona El Tahawi, where she said, as an Egyptian-born, she's envious of what's going on in Tunis. She said, if every Arab leader has watched Tunisia in fear, then every Arab citizen has watched in hope, because it was neither Islamists, long used by our leaders to scare many into acquiescence, nor foreign troops that toppled the dictator. It was ordinary and very fed-up people. You've been speaking with people back in Egypt. Are they watching what's going on in Tunisia closely?
In fact, the word envious is really the right word, because I think not only Egyptian people, but most of the Arab world. I mean, this Jasmine revolution, as I call it in Tunisia, gave hope back to the Arab population. A lot of analysts, a lot of intellectuals were most pessimistic about what is the position of the Arab world, what is the position of the population. And they would not have hope at all in the future. And now we can see that something is happening. I'm not so optimistic saying that it will go everywhere and who is next and this thing, because this is too complicated to be as superficial as this kind of vision. But I think that it's bringing back, the list is saying that it's bringing back hope to the all Arab population.
All right. In some parts of the world, though, We've seen a copycat effect. We've been talking about it in the news bulletins. Instances of self-immolation, no fewer than 6 reported since Saturday in Algeria. There's also been cases of that in Mauritania and Egypt. And we've seen over the weekend cost of living protests in Jordan.
We are here to give a message to the government that people will not stay silent until they are in the streets. We need to have clear reform to continue our lives.
Amel Boubekeur, you write in that piece we mentioned in El Watan that, or in that interview you granted rather, that when you've been out in the field in Morocco and Algeria or Tunisia, you see people that are no longer afraid to confront the state and whose use of violence has been demystified.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I have seen, because use of violence has been violence has been so used over and over by the state. And now people are not afraid anymore, and especially with the Tunisian example. But I would say that who's next is not the right question, because after all, this strong man, are not the most important issues. You can see in Tunisia that now Ben Ali is gone, but the real question now is what is going to happen next. And what is going to happen next in terms of pluralistic politics, in terms of openness of the political system. I mean, that's the real question we should ask, because we have seen uprisings and riots everywhere. Cases of immolation are actually not that new. 10 years ago, people were used to immolate themselves in Algeria, in Morocco also. So the real question should be, okay, not just who's next, but who's next for where is going to be the next revolution in the Arab world, and not just focus on the head of the government or on these strong autocrats, but much more on the capabilities of the people to bring change in their own countries.
George Joffe, is it revolution that's coming to the Arab world?
No, I don't think so yet. We're at the very early stages of the crisis in Tunisia. All that's happened so far is that a dictator has been forced out of office, and there have been some cosmetic changes in terms of the government structure. But don't forget, behind this, there's a determination of a system to remain in power if it possibly can. And that's why, in fact, the new unity government, so-called in Tunisia, is so disappointing. If indeed the RCD, which is the party behind this, manages to maintain itself in power, then in effect, the popular uprising in Tunisia will have lost the objectives it sought for itself. And therefore we're now in a very long period, at least 2 months I think, in which this particular argument about the nature of governance in Tunisia has yet to be played out. And that's extremely important, because elsewhere in the Arab world, people will of course have noticed the power of popular resentment. But they'll also be asking the question, how do we make this into something that is viable and effective? And only when that occurs will Tunisia become the real example that the rest of the Arab world may try to follow.
All right, and today in The Independent, in a front-page column entitled The Brutal Truth About Tunisia, Robert Fisk writes that he doesn't think the age of the Arab dictator is over. He says everyone's lowering their prices now, or promising to. Cooking oil and bread are the staples of the masses, so prices will come down in Tunisia and Algeria. But why should they be so high in the first place? He argues that the search is now on for a more pliable dictator in Tunisia. Would you agree, Saad Jabbar? It's now just a question of, adjusting the volume in terms of repression?
Well, I think the neighboring countries to Tunisia and Egypt would do their best through their intelligence services to make sure that the gains accomplished by the Tunisian people will not achieve the goal of transferring that into modern democracy, because that harms them and enhances the possibility of ending these regimes. Because if change happens in Tunisia and the model of democracy is established there, it will definitely affect Algeria and other surrounding countries. Tunisia, if democracy takes root there, it will spread throughout the Maghreb and the North African countries and far beyond. Let me tell you another point. The delightful thing And the beauty of what happened in Tunisia is that the revolution was conducted not by an Islamist party which could have claimed credit. It wasn't carried out by a communist tendency. It wasn't carried out by given or liberal tendency. This has been the effort of all sections of the Tunisian society. This is the innovation which frightens the hell out of the Arab regimes around Tunisia and far beyond. And that's why I say what happened today in Tunisia regarding the new government falls far short than the expectations of those who have gone out to fight for their own freedom. And if I may say so, the French government have played a very, very dirty role in these events, because remember one thing, what Sarkozy said a few years ago. He believed in what the Algerians and Tunisians and other dictators are telling the West. If you change us, you will have Taliban. Now, in Tunisia, you will not have Taliban. If there is any change in Egypt, it will not be Taliban. If you change the system in Algeria, you will not have Taliban. You will have democratic governments which will be online to be accepted or adhere to the principles of the Euromed and to democracy. Therefore, if you cannot stay on the fence this time and encourage the Tunisian, the same old in the form of new. The same regime exists now in Tunisia, and they wanted to hijack the achievement of the Tunisian people. This should not be allowed to happen.
All right, and certainly this is stirring debate everywhere. Let me ask you, Monsef Sheikh, briefly to rebound on that.
A very, very brief comment. What has been happening in Tunisia today is a very first in all the Arab world. Until now, revolutions were coups made by the army, and then the people would come in the streets. Here, we have the people that paid a very high price to get its dignity back. And the army, which has been a very responsible army in Tunisia, has defended the people. So this is the other way around. It's a matter of dignity. Dignity means what? Three things. Jobs, no corruption, and a representative parliament.
Okay.
This is what is happening in Tunisia. So if it could happen to other neighboring countries, I think it would be good, but without necessarily the revolution. I would urge the other governments to consider a plan to introduce this before they will withdraw.
All right. Amel Boubekeur.
If I can.
I was going to say, we know that in Tunisia, the middle class had attained a critical mass. You say that in neighboring Algeria, a large part of the population still is left out.
Yeah, but still, I think one of the main lessons of this Tunisian riots or this Tunisian revolution is really that people are no more waiting for solutions from the state. That's really the lesson. I mean, what does that mean to immolate oneself or to go to take the streets and organize riots or demonstrations? It's a direct face-to-face with the state, with political representatives who are not listening to their people. And I think that's the main lesson. I mean, it has been said over and over that this is the revolution led by the people. And I think that beyond that, what we have to understand is that really the state is not efficient anymore. The state is not asked anymore to bring and to provide with solutions to its people. So that's why I think we are going to witness more and more micro-political mobilization on the ground of people who are trying to organize themselves independently of what the government is offering. And you can see that in Tunisia, a lot of people are not that happy with what the government is, even the temporary government is offering.
We'll get back to that point in the second half. Mahmoud Ismail, on the point of
yes,
this.
I think that, something very important, all of the colleagues, they pointed that it is a revolution coming from the people. There is no political tendency, and also there is no leadership. This is very important. Absolutely. There is no leadership. And what's happening in Tunisia now? The problem is coming that this man created a void around him during 23 years. So now there is no one for the population.
And he's not the only one if you look around the Arab world.
Yes, he's not the only one. I agree. And this problem will face every country. But also there are some particularities, we must say, that Tunisian population is not, a very, very big population. I mean, there are similarities, but there are a lot of also difference between other neighboring countries. I mean, we are speaking about 10 millions. We have 30 millions in Algeria. We have 80 millions in Egypt. And we are speaking also about a kind of education. I mean, what's happening in Tunisia today is the fruit of a very long educational system installed from the independence with Bourguiba. Even, I don't say what was the object of such a ruler or another ruler, but anyway, these people are civilized. These people are not massacring and destroying. They are civilized. There was no feeling of hatred. You see, they are putting the photo of President Ben Ali in a very decent way. They didn't cut it. They didn't burn it. And this sign is a sign of a civilized population.
All right. I want to get back to a point that Saad Jabbar made a moment ago about the fact that the specter of Islamism has been brandished before to prop up some regimes. Let's take a look, believe it or not, at the Daily Mail, where Tunisia, yes, makes the front page as well. Although, well, you'll see it in a moment there. It's got its own angle, the Daily Mail. The front page is about the British tourists that are stuck. In the inside page, it's an analysis piece by Mark Almond of Oxford University, who says the fact that it is the bored, unemployed young in Arab countries, as in Britain and elsewhere, who today are susceptible, he thinks, to radicalization. I want to ask you, George Joffe, do you agree that there is this specter with all the people that Mahmoud Ismail has described who are not politicized of becoming radicalized and Islamicized?
No, I don't. I think one of the great lessons of what's happened in Tunisia is to demonstrate that actually the mass of the population is quite aware of its own particular political isolation and deprivation, and it doesn't need to turn to other ideologies to justify its resistance to what the Tunisian government had done to it. It's really a striking feature that political Islam played no part at all in the demonstrations in Tunisia, and it should be borne in mind that the last time this happened there in 1984, political Islam did play such a role. Now, whether that's because the Ben Ali regime had extirpated all questions of political Islam from the political scene in Tunisia, or whether it's because of the nature of the Tunisian people, it is a moot point. I suspect it's actually to do with the nature of the Tunisian people. Right. And I think one needs to appreciate the way in which, quite apart from the political repression, Tunisia became, over the years, a sophisticated and integrated society. And that does demonstrate, it seems to me, that even at moments of deprivation, the political Islamic alternative is not the only one on the agenda, not just in Tunisia, but probably elsewhere in the Islamic world as well, and in the Arab world.
George Joffe will pick up on that point. We do have to take a break. We'll be back, though. The France-24 debate continues. We'll be taking a look more in depth at what is going to happen next inside Tunisia.